Yeah, I think I was not audible. Can someone confirm that I'm audible on the chat? All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Fazan Sajid with you, Senior Cybersecurity Consultant at Infratech. It's our pleasure to have you with us, and thank you very much for joining. We really, thankful for having you with us today. In today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the newly released regulatory framework from NCA, which is NCNICC 2025, which is purposely designed and mandated for the Saudi private sector. It's very important to understand what has been newly introduced and why it matters to the private sector organizations and what would be the next step that a private sector organization has to take to enhance the compliance and the security posture together. So for you, someone is new to the NCA. Hopefully, most of you will be aware of National Cybersecurity Authority. National Cybersecurity Authority was established under the Royal Order back in 2017 as the regulatory body for orchestrating and regulating the cybersecurity across the country on the national level. They were charged with defining the cybersecurity strategy at the national level, policy standards, and to ensure the regulatory oversight, mainly on the critical national infrastructure. When I say critical national infrastructure, I'm referring to primarily the government sector organizations, the semi-government organizations, or their, you can say, subsidiaries, or any other, critical national infrastructure, which are actually one of the contributing factors to the economy, such as telcos and, utilities and all those customers and organizations. Over these years, NCA has been playing the role of a governance body, enacting different frameworks around security, incident response. Couple of years back for a nationally approved MSOC provider, as well as cryptographic standards, and providing all the support to Saudi talent in terms of empowering them, capacity building for cybersecurity. Moreover, NCA has been developing the cyber ecosystem of partners, the registered companies who have the skill set and the capabilities to deliver high value cybersecurity consulting services, solution managed services, and awareness for different organizations that are actually mandated by NCA to be compliant. During the course of the webinar, in case if anyone has any clarification or a question, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I would be happy to address those questions towards the end of the session. So over these years, since the time NCA was established, mainly in 2017, you know that most of you are aware that NCA released Essential Cybersecurity Control version 1 back in 2018. And that's where, the bare minimum cybersecurity controls were actually regulated. And it was essentially, built around cyber governance, cyber defense, for cyber resilience, third-party cloud computing, as well as industrial cybersecurity controls. And this ECC became like the cornerstone of starting the cybersecurity program at an organizational level. So this standardization of the national cybersecurity through ECC and other frameworks essentially raise the maturity across government and semi-government as well as critical national infrastructure organizations. So there was a mandate. There were regular audits from NCA. They had an approved auditors who used to come and do audits for government organizations, and there were follow-ups. All these actually national level cybersecurity mandates in the form of ECC and the other frameworks has basically driven the cybersecurity efforts within those organizations, and eventually it has contributed very positively to enhance the cybersecurity maturity of the critical national infrastructure organizations. This empowerment through enacting different frameworks around risk management, incident response frameworks, as well as national cyber operations by making SOC providers highly regulated and dividing them into different tiers. As you know, that NCA mandates that the government organizations, the semi-government organizations, they must take the SOC services through tier one approved MSOC providers, and the other members can go and take the services, MSOC services from the tier two. All these actually has resulted in a better planning and better security for these organizations. Moreover, this has resulted in an ecosystem of providers who are actually registered and licensed by NCA. Registration is actually on one level, which is actually there are many companies that are registered by kind of enlisting their capabilities. And on the other side, there are some licensed companies such as MSOC providers that are authorized to deliver MSOC services, DFIR services, and these kind of things. So all this actually has resulted in building this ecosystem of cybersecurity companies, which are now contributing towards both the government sector and inshallah, like us as Infratech, since we are NCA licensed and approved, so we are in a position to support not only we have supported government, semi-government, critical national infrastructure organizations, but also we have supported the private sector organizations, and we know that with this regulation coming, there will be a lot of challenges for the private sector organizations in order to enhance their cybersecurity maturity, because most of the time the private sector actually were not compliance driven. They were mostly driven by the internal policy, and it was more of a reactive approach. But now with this new regulation coming from NCA mandating and dividing companies into two different classes, which I will be discussing in the upcoming slides, and definitely as a private sector organization, one need to see what is the applicability of controls or the category that they fall, and accordingly start their gap assessments and maturity planning from there on. In terms of the overall, if you can say that if you summarize all these efforts that NCA is being putting, this has definitely resulted in an improved national cyber readiness. If you look back in the Shamoon days when it came, and then it had a very negative impact on the government organizations. So this is actually, it became one of the, you can say, the drivers and the contributing factor to start working on the better preparation to deal with cyber readiness, cyber threats, and to build this trust in the digital services, and support the Saudi Vision 2030, and support the digital transformation journeys of these organizations. So, knowing that NCA was mainly focused on the government sector, semi-government, as well as critical national infrastructure. Now, knowing that there is a great, support required from the private sector to support the national, economy. Private sector has to contribute as part of the Vision 2030, targets expanding private sector GDP contribution to 65%, and small medium enterprises should be contributing 35%. So this expectation from the private as well as small medium enterprises can only be achieved when they are secure and they are actually resilient. Then only they can grow and they can support the Saudi 2030 vision. So that became one of the one of the contributing factors of enacting this NCNICC framework. On the other side, National Cybersecurity Authority, was focusing mostly on the critical and sensitive assets. That has been keeping the private sector, insecure most of the time because there was no actually defined framework for this sector. So this resulted in a lot of small medium enterprises having impact in their operations due to some kind of a ransomware attack or others phishing attacks and other kind of cybersecurity related attacks. So this NCNICC, is actually addressing this by defining the bare minimum, cybersecurity requirements for small, medium, and large organizations that fall outside the critical infrastructure domain. And the overall goal is to, empower this national cyber resilience. So that's actually the goal behind building this framework for and extending the protection now to the private sector organizations, which was only meant mainly until lately, until this framework was released, which was end of last year. And it was mainly focused around, how to protect the critical national infrastructure organizations and their contributions to the government Vision 2030. But now private sector actually is being counted for the support towards the economy. So they need to be resilient. They need to be more secure. That's where this national cybersecurity, felt the need to have this kind of framework on the private sector organizations. Now, keeping compliance in one side and looking cybersecurity as a business issue is very important to highlight and think about. So even if an organization doesn't have a compliance push or compliance need, still this is actually a board level concern nowadays. So long gone are the days when cyber was thought of an IT issue. It's now treated by business leaders as a business risk because it can negatively cripple the operations. It can result in revenue loss because you are, as a private sector, you are actually in a very competitive landscape. So let's say if you are hosting a web portal and you're doing some kind of e-commerce into that, and for some reason there is some cyber attack which puts your system down and others of your competitors are actually up and running, then this will definitely result in a revenue loss because customers, don't wait for, they don't wait for the product or service, they move on. So having a 24/7, 365 or 99.99% availability is actually at the core of the business requirement. And as many organizations are actually moving to digital transformation, so the reliance on the ICT, information and communication technology infrastructure, is way more than it used to be in the past. So most of the time you are having e-commerce or digital services for your customers, for your business partners, and you need to have them up and ready most of the time to avoid revenue loss and loss in the customer trust, and market reputation in case if any sensitive data is leaked for your customers. As a private sector organization, if you are dealing with any like critical national infrastructure company or organization and you're collecting their data, and if for any reason, God forbid, that data goes into the wrong hands, then it can have loss in the customer trust. You can also have some kind of a market reputational risk as well. And on top of that, there are legal obligations that one need to keep into consideration. So both from a contractual obligation point of view. So today, if you have any contracts with your customers, cybersecurity is part of those contracts because third-party risk management is one of the things that you should be having it as part of your contract. So as a, let's say as a government organization or semi-government or any CNI kind of organization, I have a mandate from NCA to include the third-party cybersecurity risk requirements as part of my contract. So I would be, before I sign any agreement with any private sector organization as a government, I need to make sure that whoever I'm doing the handshake with is also secure and they have at least the bare minimum security in place so that when I, as in the course of my day-to-day business, when I'm going to be sharing my data with them, they're going to be taking care of my data. So they have sufficient network security in place. They have at least fundamental, data protection in place. So all those, clauses get into this kind of contracts. And as a private sector organization, you have some kind of legal obligations to make sure that you are secure, and at the same time you have a compliance risks as well that you need to keep into the considerations. So cybersecurity in a nutshell is no longer an IT issue. It's basically an institutional level or business issue, and this is how it should be communicated by the technology leaders as well as the cyber leaders to the board, that this is something like any other, like credit risk or finance risk. This is one of the operational risk that has to be communicated to the board. And accordingly, at an organizational level, a cybersecurity governance should be established, a committee should be established that can drive the cybersecurity risk management and compliance activities across the organization. So what makes cybersecurity, a concern with in the era of AI? Definitely AI is being leveraged by businesses such as generative AI, agentic AI, all those, AI use cases that businesses are actually starting to capitalize. The same tools and same, models are actually available with the threat actors as well. And for them, it's very easy to craft any email that would look benign and very, business friendly kind of email. It would have certain links into that, some attachments, and it can kind of pass through these security controls if they are weak. So AI is actually, becoming it's basically an AI versus AI. So as a defender, you need to have your security stack should be having AI enabled, defense. On the other side, bad guys are using AI to kind of exploit, build exploit fast, run, generate, phishing messages and code, malicious code more promptly than they used to have in the past. Also, as organizations, especially of private sector, most of the time they don't want to go into the building data centers from scratch. The focus is to leverage, cloud services such as, infrastructure as a service or software as a service. And, there is no tight parameter as such. So anybody can be working from any device, any location, anytime, and they're going to be accessing the cloud applications. Essentially, you cannot have the mindset of just I have a head office or a branch network and I will deploy one firewall and that's it. This, expansion or extension of your perimeter, basically in terms of cloud and, BYOD has made cyber threats even more, concerning. Moreover, third-party vendor risks. So your supply chain is becoming one of the core reasons for, the infection point. So if you are dealing with any vendor, any software provider, you all know that, SolarWinds, and remember the SolarWinds attack when one of the binaries of SolarWinds were actually, compromised and how it actually resulted in a worldwide compromise. Lately, another cybersecurity vendor had some glitches in their software, which resulted, operational downtime in the production environment. So, making sure that, the software vendors and your suppliers are actually secure is very, very important. And having cybersecurity as part of your you can say like contractual obligations is a must. Digitally, organizations are expanding their footprint, and they are actually susceptible to many different kind of vulnerabilities by, extending their digital presence. So you're not simply, confine your network into just, within a specific like private cloud environment. So you are using a hybrid cloud of environment. So there is some kind of a private a cloud, then there are some cloud services, right? So there could be some like data centers. So all these actually, this digital expansion, such as hosting apps and portals is resulting into the cyber concerns. We cannot ignore the human factor. Humans are actually treated as actually the weakest line of defense. If they are not empowered well, if they are not trained on cybersecurity related do's and don'ts, if they are not trained on cybersecurity, threats, risks, and the kind of behavior that we expect from them, then they can make your security fail. So onboarding, users, because every now and then you are actually handing over your data and your systems, your operators, your business users, all of them are humans at the end of the day. If you are focusing totally on the technology side of things and leaving humans aside, this can result in reduction in your cybersecurity exponentially. So these are some of the key drivers which are becoming, a growing concern for organizations that are actually concerned about cybersecurity for the organization. So now, just to see this new framework, so this NCNICC-1 2025 is purposely designed for non-CNI. So when I say CNI, is basically critical national infrastructure. So whatever I have mentioned before could be a government organization, semi-government, telco, utility, all those that are actually contributing towards the economy and the growth of the economy over these years. And they will still be, are regulated by NCA for many different frameworks. They are not only dealing with ECC. There is, Triple C and OTCC and many other frameworks are there. But as a private sector organization, you need to know only and focus only on this framework. And after understanding, the class or the category that you fall in, inshallah, in the next slides, I'm going to be discussing onto that. So if you define, this cybersecurity controls for non-CNI private sector, it's basically the mandatory baseline that will be actually raising the cybersecurity maturity across the private businesses. So you must be thinking, who needs to comply? I mean, because there are many frameworks out there. Sometimes you get confused. So there is a clear, guideline available at the moment. So there are two categories of companies that they have created. One is the Class A, which is the large entities, which should be categorized if they have more than 250 full-time employees. They have a revenue of more than 200 million Saudi riyal annually, and they have more stringent controls, definitely almost like 65 controls are applicable. But still less if you compare to the ECC framework, which is actually a great number of controls that actually any private sector organization can afford to implement because of their size, their the kind of organization size and their resources and their capabilities. So still, these large entities are actually falling in this definition. There is another class, which is Class A, which is small medium enterprises. They are from 6 to 249 full-time employees, a revenue of between 3 to 200 million Saudi riyal annually, and the applicability or the complexity of the controls is on a moderate level. So there are about 26 cybersecurity controls that they need to evaluate and assess and implement and then review on a continuous basis. Let me take a pause and see if there are any questions that I have. No questions so far. Hopefully, all is clear. If I'm moving fast, please give me a pause by just stopping me by chat. Hopefully, we will have some time at towards the end of the session to address some of your queries, inshallah. So when it comes to the structure of NCNICC framework, you know, unless ECC, which consists of four domains recently, and ICS cybersecurity was removed, and with so many controls that you can think about. This one is actually more condensed version, more achievable, implementable, reasonable, I must say, compared to the size and the complexity that a private sector organization can afford. So they have divided into mainly three domains. So cyber governance, cyber defense, and then there is a joint domain, which I would say third party and cloud security. So it's very important to have a clear mindset about compliance. Compliance is not just about having policies. So drafting policies is easy. One can spend a month or so to have different policies available, procedures available. What it takes as a commitment is to implement these cybersecurity governance artifacts, such as your strategy, your policy, standards, procedures, and then have them, auditable, sustainable, and then maintain the security across the business in a continuous manner, having periodic reviews internally and externally to make sure that your security is actually on an acceptable level and compliant to the required regulations. I have already discussed about the drivers of and the challenges that can be faced in case of cybersecurity is breached. So, but I would definitely love to kind of stress on that. So, trust issues come if cybersecurity is impacted. You start losing contracts. You start losing the confidence in customers start losing confidence in you. They want to work with someone who is more secure, who takes care of their data, because data is actually as the heart of the engagement. So as part of your business engagement in your day-to-day operations, you share some data with them, they share some data with you. So there is actually a two-way trust relationship required, so that each organization that is being entrusted with some data, they properly secure it, maintain it, maintain the privacy and security of that data. Customer retention, partnerships, brand reputation, all those actually concerning pressing issues that one must be looking at in case cybersecurity gets impacted. Then all those actually areas will be impacted as well. So the idea, to have you here with us is to basically support your organizations in this compliance journey. Most of you probably are already at certain level of compliance or certain level of security, and not starting from scratch. But we have like a 5-step roadmap. So to start with the scope and applicability. So you need to first understand if you are a private sector organization, are you falling in the class A or class B? What are the controls that are applicable on you? Just to understand, what is applicable and up to how much, deep you need to go and implement those cybersecurity controls, because the definition of class A and class B, is very, very clear, and you can go over that, and you can easily filter out and understand where you fall actually and what is applicable to you. And then to start a gap assessment, control by control, and making a mapping. Okay, do I have the people required to implement these controls? Do I have the process in place? Do I have the technology in place? Because cybersecurity is essentially you can say a composite of people, process, and technology controls. So one need to see cybersecurity from these three pillars that make up the cybersecurity, and then you do a cybersecurity, control gap assessment, control by control for all the applicable controls, and then you see, okay, I have these controls, and having not having these controls actually put my security at risk, okay, of what magnitude? So let's say if I don't have a firewall, this is a serious concern. If I don't have an endpoint protection or an EDR, let's say on my endpoints, this is a serious concern. On the other side, probably if I in the class B of category, I don't need to be having cyber governance as a mandatory requirement, because that's more towards a recommendation. So I will focus on the controls that are more mandatory on me than to focus on the recommendation. So you basically filter those out. This is the mandatory controls that I need to comply with, and this is the recommended controls I need to apply with. So you need to basically prioritize your risks and your applicability in line to that. And then according to those risks, you implement the mitigation controls, such as, defining a process, implementing a process, or implementing a technology or a service, such as a managed service for continuous security monitoring. So you implement these controls to minimize the compliance risk and security risk at the same time. Once you're done with all those implementation of the controls, then you start working on the preparations of your audit. So once NCA approaches you and asks you for they want to conduct an external audit, then you will be in a situation to welcome them and give them all the required evidences. So it's very important that you know that there is four line of defense. So when it comes to the compliance journey, so it should always start with the cybersecurity. So as a cybersecurity department, you do some kind of a self-assessment to see where you are. Then as an organization, if you have an internal audit function, that internal audit function can have a compliance check or an audit on you with regards to this framework, if it's applicable. And then you can also have an external auditor, such as like Infratech or any, organization that you deem, is qualified to conduct these kind of external audits. And then, once you see this from three levels, which is the first line of defense, which is your cybersecurity department, and then the internal audit function, which is the second line, and then the third line is your, external audit, which is the independent eye. Then you know where you are. You know that I am good to be being regulated, or being audited by the regulatory body itself. That's the fourth line of defense. So that's where you basically give them all the required evidences, because you have already gone through this exercise many times, and you know that you are well prepared, and you have all those artifacts and evidences collected, placed in one folder, control by control. The moment they ask you, you're ready with those control evidences, and you present them. We can definitely help you in your compliance journey. So as far as the support that Infotech has been extending to the government sector organization today, Infotech is serving around 1,000 customers. 190 of them are prestigious customers. Many of these projects are actually around like government sectors, semi-government organizations, enterprises, where we have supported them to build the cybersecurity GRC programs, as well as implementing the cyber defense, also providing them managed services. So we have helped critical national infrastructure organizations already, and we want to extend the same support and the value that we have generated for those customers to make them compliant. We would love to extend the same to private sector organizations as well. And in terms of that, so we can do a gap assessment, scope and applicability, or statement of applicability kind of things, then developing the GRC documentation in terms of like strategy, policy, procedures, implementation of the cybersecurity technology solutions. Once we are done with that, we will do like a pre-audit kind of engagement with you, and ensure you an ongoing compliance support, because cybersecurity is not just a one-time well, just like a checkbox and then you forgot it. It's basically a process. So threats change, risk change accordingly, the controls environment change, your assets change. So it's basically a continuous process, and we will be there to support you in the ongoing compliance journey. Moving next, this is actually coming from experience, since we have supported a lot of customers on the NCA requirements, be it ECC, OTCC, cloud cybersecurity controls. So we know how to start the journey. So we always understand the context of the business, the applicability of the those frameworks, and then we do like a control gap assessment. So we have done the similar exercise for the NCNICC framework, and we have divided into you can say on your screen the domain, the subdomain, the control numbers, and how our solutions and services actually can help our customers to achieve the compliance or implement those controls. And if you see on your right, you will see that there is applicability of controls. So if you look at category A organization, it's mandatory for it to have a cyber governance controls implemented, all of them, right? While on the other side, the category B is not mandated, it's recommended to have it, right? So this, the scope and applicability is very, very important. One cannot like just boil the ocean and say everything is required to be compliant. You need to implement these many solutions, these many technologies to be fully compliant. This will be actually a waste of resources. So prioritization of what controls need a platform, need a service, all those is very, very important. While a GRC platform is not a must to have, but if in case if an organization like for example a large enterprise which is falling outside the critical national infrastructure, or a medium enterprise that have those that category A requirements fulfilled, and they're already GRC certain level of maturity, and they want to go one step next in their maturity, they can consider a GRC platform. So our approach will be always consultative. So we will let you know what needs to be done first and then next and so on. So if an organization doesn't have, even the fundamental requirements covered, such as they don't have a cybersecurity management, plans, they don't have like cybersecurity policies and procedure, they don't have risk management requirements covered, such as they don't have risk management framework, they don't conduct risk assessments, they don't have risk treatment plans, then we will not ask them to go for a GRC platform. Definitely the most important thing would for them would be to give them some kind of a managed GRC consulting services, and to develop the required GRC framework, and then conduct all those assessments based on those framework. So these are some of the map services. So around governance, for defense, as you know, there is an asset management, and there's a requirement to have list down all the information and technology assets. Yeah, it can be achieved through manual ways, and it can be achieved through like a software solution. We based on the complexity and the budget, we can tailor the approach. We can probably, if the budget is low, we can suggest some kind of asset management consulting services where we can help them build the asset register, which is acceptable by NCA, covering all their information technology assets in terms of their location, their IPs, their sensitivity levels, all those things, and to build it and place it in one asset register. Or the same can be also, achieved through like some kind of a CMDB solution or asset management solution. As part of the identity and access management, mainly there are controls around multi-factor authentication. So today, if you have some kind of a remote access or you are accessing the webmail, there's a requirement to have an MFA on that. Then there is another control which is towards identity and access management. And as per our understanding, that mainly bare minimum a Microsoft Active Directory environment is a must. And if you want to go a next step in the automation and identity governance administration, and IAM solution would help you achieve significant compliance for these identity access management requirements. Moreover, there is a privileged identities or privileged access management requirement, which can be achieved through a PAM solution without naming any vendor out there. So we are actually vendor agnostic. So we always sit with our customer, understand their, their environment and their budget, and accordingly we suggest the best, vendor that can meet the requirements. That's why we are not presenting any vendors here today. Also, if some of you are, are familiar with NCA ECC framework, there was a domain for information system and information processing facilities protection, which is essentially talking about your server environment, your workstation environment, and you know that the most fundamental control one can think about is actually an EPP EDR on those assets. Moving forward, we have other controls which are also required for being compliant with the subdomains, such as Microsoft Active Directory. There's a requirement to have a clock synchronization on all your information assets. So today, if your network switches, your servers, your workstations, and other IP-based devices are actually not having one single unified clock source, then whatever events or alerts that your SIEM solution or these devices are actually generating are actually cannot be correlated. It cannot be used for any security detection and response capability. So there's a requirement to have a centralized clock synchronization, such as from SASO, from Saudi Arabian Standard Organization, as a time source. Or you can have, if you have another critical requirement more than IT. I know most of you would be having IT requirements, but generally in the OT environments, a dedicated GPS server is recommended that has its own time source and antenna and all those kind of things. But generally in IT, an NTP server with these time sources is more than sufficient. Email protection cannot be underestimated. It's basically has been one of the primary attack vectors over these years. It has been studied that more than 60% of the cyber breaches actually start from some kind of an email attack. Could be phishing, spear phishing, business email compromise kind of tactics that bad guys are using. So having a sound email protection is an expectation of this framework, and it actually cut across different layers of email security, starting with the secure email gateway. Could be on premises, or it could be security as a service somewhere in the cloud, and that should have fundamentally covering you for anti-phishing, anti-spam, email authentication kind of requirements, business email compromise protection. Business email compromise protection, you can think of it as someone is trying to like spoof the identities of who you deal with. Could be your suppliers, could be your customers, and they try to basically make the emails appealing that they are originated from a certain source or certain organization or certain bank that you deal with, and then try to kind of do a wire transfer or lure you to expose certain information to them by replying to those emails. So that is actually one of their techniques that they use to exfiltrate information and make these wire transfers, illegal wire transfers, possible. Another layer of protection is actually at the exchange level. So definitely, if you are not having an on-premises exchange and you are on Microsoft, let's say on Office 365 or others, those are generally covered by the provider itself. But still, you need to take care of the email security DNS records, such as you need to have your sender policy framework, DKIM, DMARC, and their verification on your email gateway. So you also need to publish these records in the DNS, right? So that others can use it to protect the emails coming from your domain. And likewise, when the inbound emails are coming, you need to have those email authentication, protocols and mechanism enabled. Also, there's a requirement for advanced threat protection. So your email gateway is not enough because it works mainly on signatures. Introducing, some kind of a zero-day malware protection or URL filtering is an expectation. So whatever email security solution you go and implement, it should have fundamentally your basic protection requirement plus the ATP requirements. In the network security domain, essentially, a next generation firewall is a requirement. You should also be having, wireless security. So if you have a wireless network, it should be properly, hardened. It should have the right encryption on. It should have the right authentication on. With regards to your web protection, so essentially, if you're browsing the internet, you need to have web filtering capabilities as part of your next generation firewall. If you want to go one step further, you can definitely go and implement a dedicated proxy, which is a recommendation from our side, but it's not a must. Still, if you have the web filtering capabilities as part of your next generation firewalls, you can still be compliant because NCA generally, they ask you to show if those, certain categories, web categories are being blocked on your next generation firewalls, which generally is acceptable by NCA. You cannot, ignore the signature, detection system or, signature-based detection system, such as in network intrusion detection system as a standalone appliance, or generally most of the time it is available, embedded as the next generation firewall, such as from Palo Alto, Fortinet, Cisco, all these actually coming with IPS capabilities. Within them. It's just a matter of how you tune these signatures so that they don't result in false positive. Because dealing with signatures is always there is a challenge of having a balanced security so you don't impact your business. So that's where we can come and support you into fine tuning your IPS signatures so that it does not result in blocking your legitimate business traffic or business applications traffic. As far as the network security management domain is concerned, there is an expectation of a DDoS protection for mobile devices in case if you're allowing BYOD, bring your own devices, then a mobile device management is an expectation. For data and information protection, at a bare minimum, the requirement is to have data classification capabilities, data loss prevention, as well as if the data goes outside the organization, if you have to share it for any reason, then how you can keep a control on that data through in data rights management, information rights management. So let's say you have to share some sensitive information with one of your business partners, but you still want to maintain the control. You want to make sure that he cannot copy, he cannot, for example, print, and all those, right management permissions that you assign on the data, and then you maintain it. You can, share the files through to your partners by giving them a secure DMZ kind of container where they come and they connect on the web portal, and they can only, have these documents open through web and properly watermarked so that, in case if someone take a screenshot, you know that who actually, leaked that data. As part of the data information protection, there's also a requirement for brand protection solution with takedown capabilities. So to protect your identities mainly and your data in case if any data is actually kind of leaked, then you have like a dark web and deep web, all these kind of surface web. So all those actually different levels of internet one need to be keeping an eye on. So that's where the brand protection solutions come into play. That is also a requirement. For data information protection, having printers with user identification and authentication support is a requirement as well. So as you are printing, some documents, you need to make sure that there are certain controls that your printers are actually having. So no unattended printing. You should go on the printer, put your key, put your authentication, and then you should be able to print it. You can take it a next level further by implementing screen watermarking kind of solution, so that even if you're printing the documents, the user that printed that paper has its username and machine identification on that paper. That's where it's not a must, but still we recommend to have, like, in case you want to go a mature level of security for data information, you can consider kind of a screen watermarking solution as well. Moving forward, if you're dealing with like if you have some paper-based information, you can go for paper shredders. If you need to like reuse those machines for some other user, you need to have like some kind of a data sanitization solution so that you can, kind of, format. I won't say format, override the data several times, with different patterns so that it is, theoretically irrecoverable. And then you can reassign that machine, that device to another user or the other, department employee, let's say. For cryptography, there's an expectation for, in case if you have databases holding sensitive information at a minimum level, you should have some kind of a transparent data encryption, TDE kind of encryption on those databases to securely, keep the data at rest. For your roaming devices or your workstations, especially mainly for the roaming devices, where there is a there is a risk of being lost or stolen. If someone can take out the hard drive out and then connect it through some kind of a removable media container to have that information extracted. So in order to protect those lost and stolen cases for your roaming devices, your laptops, all those kind of things, workstation should also be included. But the most risk is towards roaming devices. That's where full disk encryption comes into play. If you're talking about data in motion, as if you're exchanging some data on the web application level or on the network level, then make sure that you have proper TLS, secure TLS versions enabled, secure cryptographic, algorithms are selected, right key sizes for encryption are actually configured. All those are actually a requirement. For the backup, if you're taking your backups out and you're keeping these somewhere, maybe in your tape drives or your other backup repositories, make sure that encryption is on. These are some of the expectations. As far as the cryptography services are concerned from Infotech, we won't say that you implement like high expensive HSM kind of products or KMS kind of products, but as long your cryptographic algorithms and key management practices are actually baked into or configured in your applications as you develop, or the operating system that actually you are deploying are actually hardened with, then it should be fine. These are some of the other controls. Just in case if we are short of time, I might not be able to cover all of them, but you will definitely have the chance to, see the recording as well. So we have subdomains for cyber defense. For backup management, there's expectation of backup management solution. For vulnerability management, patch management, as well as patch testing environment. For vulnerability management subdomain, there is also a requirement for vulnerability management solution. It could be like a managed vulnerability detection solution, or it could be in-house. Also for web applications, there is a requirement for vulnerability management. There's also a requirement of penetration testing. Your services, your exposed services, I must say. Then there is some requirements around cybersecurity events, logs, and monitoring, such as having your own SIM solution or going for an managed SOC provider that can give you SIM as a service. There is also a requirement of continuous security monitoring for your logs. You can go and sign a contract with any managed SOC provider, such as Infotech, which is licensed by NCA. When you go on the NCA website, you will find only like 8 companies registered as a tier 2, and mainly private sector organizations, in order to make sure that their budget limits can be fulfilled, and they can be accommodated in the tight budgets they have. Generally, a tier 2 is a good way to look at. So managed SOC licensed by NCA is one of the requirement. In case if you cannot afford building your own SOC 24/7 SOC. Incident management, threat management is a requirement. For this, we have like digital forensics, incident response, retainer services, as well as compromise assessments. Physical security is there as well. So physical security cannot be eliminated. So having proper access control, environmental monitoring solutions, CCTV monitoring solutions is a requirement. Web application security, if you have some web applications developed, you need to have a secure development lifecycle followed. If you are publishing your applications externally, you need to have a WAF in place. Lastly, for web application security, you also need to conduct web application penetration testing. It's a mandatory requirement for Class A or Category A companies, while it is actually a recommendation for Category B. The last domain, which is third party and cloud computing cybersecurity, it essentially has two subdomains. One focusing on the third parties. So today, if you are in business with another organization and you're exchanging some data with them, you need to have some kind of a third party risk management framework. Having security requirements part of your contracts, conducting some kind of a risk assessment on those, compliance assessment on those third parties, and periodic reviews. This is a mandatory requirement for category A, while it's a recommendation for category B. And the cloud computing cybersecurity, all applicable controls. We conduct like vendor onboarding risk assessments, building security questionnaires for you, control mapping for what the cloud provider is covering and what we need to cover from our side. Because as you know that when you adopt a cloud service, by default you feel that they are responsible for the entire security compliance, but this is not true. As you know that cloud is actually built on shared responsibility model. So you need to see that, okay, which controls are actually covered by them, which are going to be covered by me. So all these actually control mapping exercises are required. Continuous monitoring on the cloud environment, cloud security posture management, data protection, visibility, compliance tracking, all those actually, requirements that we or cover through our consulting services within the domain of cloud computing cybersecurity. So I've tried to cover, a big list of domain and subdomain and controls in a very short amount of time. I might be quick. I am sorry if I'm very fast, but we are available at your disposal. Anytime you can and reach out and we can have like one-to-one session to start your compliance journey on this in this framework. Early adopters are actually very much appreciated. Initially, NCA will be giving some time. This is the ideal time to start the self-assessment, gap assessments, building the plans, allocating the budget resources, and not to wait unless until this is forced by NCA, because eventually this will happen that, and we expect that in a matter of like 6 months or so, there will be a pressure coming from NCA to whoever they believe is actually applicable for giving like an external audit report. So starting early is actually is very well advised, and we are here to support you in this compliance journey to this newly enacted NCNICC-1 2025 framework. Um, been quick and fast. I have covered the content that I had with me available in my slide deck. I'm open to discuss any questions you may have. As I promised that I will be, answering some of your questions. Yeah, so there is a couple of questions. So how I can, this is a question from Abdul Moiz. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. How I can become part of national cybersecurity team. So essentially what you mean is actually how to register yourself as one of the certified members. So there is a framework from NCA which is focusing on be compliant with their requirements. So that is actually the national cybersecurity capability framework. So I would encourage that you take a look on that. It has certain skill sets required. Then through the portal, that the NCA portal you have. So essentially, if you are operating as one of the cybersecurity professionals, you can kind of submit your your skill set, and then they can kind of consider you as part of their cybersecurity requirements. With regards to the second question, Abdul Hadi, all the cybersecurity applications are license-based. That is not true. There are open source solutions available as well. It depends. Generally, there is no hard and fast requirement regulatory bodies, knowing the budgets. Sometime it is advised to go for open source, but it's not all time advised. It depends on the kind of controls, the cybersecurity applications that you can kind of afford, or you can manage the risk within that open source. Because open source, as you know from the name, it will be the core source code is available, so one can study the vulnerabilities on that code, and it can kind of bypass those vulnerabilities. So it is always dependent, what kind of security applications are you implementing. If you are going for like publicly facing security controls, such as your email security solution, your WAF, your EDR, those kind of controls, generally not advised, to go for open source providers. But in some cases, yes, like for example, if you can build an asset register using, and you can comply with some IAM controls, identity and access management controls with open source, with some professional services, added on top of that, that is actually acceptable, and organizations sometime go towards this route. I hope I answered your question, Abdul Hadi. We just had two questions so far. We still have many participants available. I know we are on top of the hour. Feel free to ask any questions you may have, and it will be our pleasure to answer those questions. Whatever we can't answer due to some shortage of time, we will be saving your details, and we will reach you out to answer any of those pending questions. I hope everyone enjoyed the time. I will give a few more minutes. I'm available here to answer any of your queries or questions, and then we can close the session for today, and we will be looking forward for upcoming webinars with you. Happy to be online for some minutes to answer any of your questions that you may have on this framework. Pleasure is mine, Lama. Welcome, George. Thank you, Afiq, for listening. I hope you found the webinar informative. Pleasure is ours. Thank you very much for your valued not a certificate at the moment, but we will definitely, connect with you, and hear from you how we can, support you, and hopefully we can have some kind of a training arranged later on for our customers, where we can have some kind of a paid training, inshallah, arranged. You can reach out to marketing. I will also dropping my email ID in the chat in case if someone want to reach out to me on a personal level. I'm also dropping my number as well. I'm available to answer any of your questions. That's my contact details. You can also reach out to marketing at infratech.com.sa. We are one call away, one message away. Just feel free to reach out. It will be our pleasure to support you. Thank you, Zafar, for your valuable inputs. I'm going to be stopping the recording.